Day 3 of the August 99 10-day retreat in Springwater. What a warm morning. Starting out with blue sky, little dots, and transparent sheets of white clouds. Now some thicker clouds hiding the sun. And airplane rumbling, insects chirping. Is it there? Is it an effort to listen? The rumbling of the plane? It's there, isn't it? The breathing? Is it there? The breathing without the word? Without knowing, just feeling it, in touch with it. Not how it should be. Deep breathing or yogic breathing. What is it? What is the breeze? The quivering leaves, the beating heart. Without the words, we need words to talk to each other. But the listening can be wordless. And if words pop up as they do from ancient habit, can we see them as words? Realize that the words, breeze shaking the branches, that those words is not what's happening. What is happening? For that, we need to stop and listen quietly, effortlessly. Do the words mingle in there? Let them. The words are not the real thing. What is the real thing? Words are words, evoking associations and pictures in the mind, emotions. But openness, presence is not a word. It contains the world, but it is not of the world. Motors, cicadas, breathing, breezing. Does it appear in openness without needing to be grabbed or grasped? or rejected. Yesterday we talked quite a bit about fear, anxiety being generated by this feeling of separation, of isolation, division between me and the world, me and you, me and nature, me and God. Division, separation, and the inevitable fear of standing alone or being lonely, being abandoned or isolated or unloved. We say this a lot, we talk about it, but can each one of us track down, like a detective, what is meant, what we mean when we say, I feel separate, I feel isolated? Because this brain and body are so constituted that we very quickly live in words, in storyline. And we can react profoundly to the stories that the brain expounds, respond emotionally with pleasure, joy, pain, tears, laughter, to a story. So can we track down what we mean when we say, I feel separate? What is this separation? What is this isolation? How does it manifest? Watch it. When you feel this way, what makes us feel this way? I'm not at all sure that the deer watching out when they hear a noise or a car comes up the drive. Yesterday they were planted all over the driveway, big ones and little ones, looking. I drove very slowly, stopped, looked at each other for a moment, and I proceeded. Time was up for me. Not for the deer. They walked, not galloped, they walked into the woods. They have no language of our kind. They do have language, because sometimes when the little one stays behind, there were these two fawns. Many of you may have seen them over the spring and summer, fawn and a mother, hovering around their driveway. And the fawns were very more curious at times than afraid or cautious, impute fear to them. So the mother had to snuff and snort a few times to get them out of the way. Do deer or animals in general, I'm not talking about those who are related and brought up by human beings, do they feel isolated or separate, divided, unloved? Well, they usually hover around in groups for whatever, comfort and survival reasons. But the thought, I'm quite sure, doesn't arise. We're lonely, we're abandoned, we're unloved. Do we begin to realize that these feelings and emotions reside in thought? And in this incredible panorama of physical sensations and emotions connected with the thoughts. And once the body gets in there, and pains and aches and tenses, convulses, there is this feeling it must be about something real, about something that's true, because it feels so real, so close, so true, this aching or pleasuring body. And it may just be about our continuously running stories about ourselves. How we are, how we could be, and we see so many stories. Our life becomes more and more consumed with movie, video, magazines, TV shows, which show us how life could be. And then the comparison, mine isn't like that. Or maybe mine is very much like that, because very often the ugly side of human beings is being shown. Can we, the moment this feeling arises, stop, look, and listen? I'm unloved. I feel so separate. I'm so isolated. And ask, where is this feeling coming from? Right now, right this moment. And be more transparent to the thoughts that evoke these feelings. And maintain them, deepen them, embellish them, propagate them. We share our stories with others and get reinforcement for them. Maybe pity for us, which reinforces the story of being lonesome, abandoned, unloved. Let us really taste directly how stories run our lives, seemingly as something real because of the real manifestations in the body, the increased heartbeat or tensing of muscles, churning of stomach and intestines, blood rising to the head, the throat throbbing. And very often people say, well, it just happened. I don't know why. There's no reason. There was no thought. Don't be so sure. This is the beauty of silent retreats, this becoming more transparent to the run of thoughts and the power of thoughts to keep this body involved in its stories, dramas, tragedies, comedies. You may say, well, wait a minute. I don't just think I'm not loved. There's no one who loves me. I have no friends. I have a feeling people don't like me. Test it out again, whether this is really true. And also, how does one live with each other? And we touched upon this from day one, all involved in one's own problems, taking up the whole space. Self-concern, selfishness, Mine will be done, my way. My justice, my rightness, my convictions, my needs, my heavy history, my heavy fate. This involvement does not attract other people. It's as simple as that. Often it repels. It's such an amazing thing to watch how when there is a human being, for a time being, can't say forever, selflessly present and engaged, it evokes our love. Selflessness, which can already express itself in the face, the absence of tensions, self-centered tensions, unself-centered speech or action. And don't you find that that it makes the love flow toward that person? I want to release them. Whoops, not this microphone. And likewise, maybe, and I'm saying maybe not to make this thing a deliberate attempt now, and not being so occupied with oneself, people gravitate naturally toward one, or toward a human being who allows some space around them, and out of that space some energy to do something for others, not to get gratitude. If it comes, it may be pleasant, but because this is a natural thing to do for each other, when there's not all space taken up by ourselves. Now, I hope it didn't sound as though any of this was said moralistically with a wagging finger. Be selfless, don't be selfish. All of this is for naught. It's not a natural process. So, if that makes some sense, what was said, it makes sense. One can see from one's experience gravitating towards someone who allows space around themselves, and with a space is often some lightness, friendliness, towardness. Zuneigung is the German word. Bending toward, or not bending. Bending is too harsh a word. Zuneigung. Yeah. Toward each other. That in that there doesn't come up the feeling of isolation or separation, because there's some freedom from all these thoughts about how poor I am, how unloved, how isolated. Because these words that we repeat to ourselves and string into storyline may not be true, may not tell us the truth at all. I say may so that each one of us examines it. Whether this is a very habitual reaction, dating back one knows not how far, of thinking about ourselves as unlovable, unloving, etc. You could say, why do we think about ourselves at all? But this brain just goes on and on and on and on and on. in a certain state of being. This is very superficial, very surface action of the brain by which we're taken in, roped in by these surface reactions, surface descriptions of the brain about ourselves, how we are, and how the others are. So can we begin to distrust these thoughts about ourselves? And in looking, in listening, in tracking down this so-called I, self, me, tracking it down every time it comes up, there is some space of looking, of listening. It creates itself out of the inquiry. What is this me? There seems so much at a mercy, at a loss. Difficulty, suffering, wanting, unfulfilled, wanting. Deep sense of insufficiency going so far back, it is buried in the unconscious. Somebody asked me, does everybody have this feeling of insufficiency? Probably. We were born so helpless, so incompetent, even though this little organism is very complete, but it can't fend for itself. It's at the mercy of others for a long time. And depending on what comes at us in descriptions of what we are, which is such a strong habit. You're this, you're that. You're not this, you're that. From that comes the building up of the self-image. From which we so suffer, which we are so attached to, and which we can begin to question. If it appears, if it becomes slightly transparent in his mind, that what dominates the thinking right now is an image about myself. How am I really? This moment of seeing through an image. It came up last night in the group. Somebody reporting feeling rejected or slightly rejected when their husband didn't accept or didn't want the leftover soups that she offered him. He said, I can cook myself, something like that. And well, all who are very habituated to participating in story, we could say, what a cruel remark. And of course, one will feel rejected and sort of sympathize or whatever. We enter into each other's stories immediately, like on slippery ice. But is this an outrageous question to ask? When I offer you a soup and you say, no, thank you, I can cook for myself, that we don't feel rejected. How easy living would be if this could be the case. Maybe the reaction coming up from habit and seeing through it instantly. I'm not saying this didn't happen for this person. I mean, it's not a personal thing. But the difficulty in our relationship with each other is that we don't see through image and live in that hurt image. Person isn't friendly to me. Person is moody. I don't like moody people. And projecting something onto a person which may not be at all accurate. can we not make it complicated? Just keep the simple question. Whether one ever needs to feel rejected, or can rather see the situation very factually the way it is. Somebody doesn't want the soup. Period. Full stop. Finished. This tremendous investment of me, the center of the story, not getting gratitude. Oh, this person herself said, I was probably not doing this for him, I was doing it for myself. I wanted to be kind, thoughtful. And this kind of desire to be seen as kind and thoughtful isn't accepted by the other person, is not supported. So can we let go of it? How quickly can we let go of it? It takes a flexible mind. In and out of the story in an instant. I'm not saying it doesn't come up or tempts to enter into it, but it doesn't have to be entered into. Then our relationships begin to become smoother, easier, and more loving, because the self-centered stuff is out of the way. It's in the way and quickly out of the way again. So, all of us, like the weather, walk and live around with all kinds of moods, triggered by who knows what. Something isn't the way one would like it to be. Hurt, rejected. The new question is, can one live around a person who is temporarily under the clouds and not take it personally? They should be this way. They don't like me. They're not friendly. Why aren't they? Just see it like, the clouds. It's a nice analogy. And not take it personally. Let them be the way they are this moment, which we will all agree from own experience. The easier somebody takes it with our moods and doesn't get hurt or annoyed at it, the easier we are out of it again. We help each other by accepting it, letting it be as a temporary phenomenon which we all are subject to, even due to weather changes. It's amazing how when the sky clears and the sun is out, how this affects the organism. And yet people are different in that. Some people love living in Seattle. Maybe because of the money to be made there. But we have dear friends who moved to Seattle. He's a poet, and he loves this steady rain. Although on the day we visited, and then the sky cleared, and it was so beautiful, they took us to botanical gardens and across the Sound and to an island. Oh, they were so happy to have the sunshine. All I'm saying, what holds for one may not necessarily hold for another. But we are subject to all kinds of atmospheric influences and rays and gravity. To allow that to express itself in different people that we live with and not get annoyed at them or take it personal. or wish this person would leave, go away, be someplace else. I think that's the art of living together. To not begin to fabricate something out of a perception and then live on in the fabrication, the interpretation. But to see each other clear-eyed for what we are at this moment. And we know how quickly we can change, or someone else can change, particularly if we allow it to happen. By not hassling each other, rejecting each other. Came up in a group, somebody saying, I wish at least we would be honest with each other. Tell each other how we feel, or whatever this honesty means. But the words are very convincing, and the word honesty, of course, has a tremendous weight to it. To be dishonest is a horrible thing to one's mind. We learned a poem in Germany in school. It was like, vor allem eins, mein Kind, sei treu und wahr. Above all else, my child, as a grown-up talking to a child, be faithful and honest and true. Imbuing this word value into a child. Because what does it really mean to be honest? Can you be honest if you get punished for it? If you get punished for saying what you did, what you feel? If people turn away from you or hate you for it? Devalue you? Or keep that in mind? This mind is such a keeper of incidents, such it hoards pictures of others. So if I tell you honestly how I feel about you this moment, this may lodge in your mind about me, how I think about you and how hurtful I am or whatever. So I may, from experience, want to be very careful in lodging images in your mind. So it's easy to say, I want you to be honest, I want to be honest with you. And it could be a wonderful thing, and it would happen. I'm sure it would happen if we could be sure the other person would remain open and listen and look together. And neither of us close up when we hear unpleasant things. I've sometimes thought this was the case with someone and said something, and it wasn't the case. The person got offended or hurt. And this, again, the memory stores it. Be careful next time. You can't do that. Because you don't want to be around and work with people who are hurt, because it distorts the mind. Damages the brain. Unless we're willing, as we are here in a retreat and in meetings, to really open the whole case up again anew and look at the stuff of why we get hurt, why do we feel rejected, and is it inevitable? Question it thoroughly, unconditionally. Not assume it's inevitable. to allow that wisdom to operate, that images get hurt, images get rejected, and have their wiring into the body. But it's a very superficial way of living and a very painful one, which when some awareness is present does not have to happen. Somebody said that at that meeting. I used to be so reactive to my mother. She pushed my buttons. And now something amazing has happened. She can say something and I can listen to it. It doesn't push the buttons. So can this happen with everyone? Even with someone who has hurt us before, and not live in that image and react from that memory. But let this presence short-circuit all of these wirings from image to body to image. Let presence be the buffer. Awareness be the short-circuiting is a good word because this is how it feels. It can't quite get through. The spark doesn't fly. Or if it has flown, it can be looked at immediately or whenever to dissolve this thing. Because we're already so full of scars, we don't need any more. No new scars and maybe dissolution of old scars as they come up into view, particularly in a retreat, but also in our daily living. Only there we often don't take the time to sit with it, to look into it, to look beyond these defenses that come up, defenses and offenses. So what is this whole business of I and me other than thought and image and memory and association and these tremendous sensations and feelings that are intertwined with that? Listening to the leaves shivering, it's not a memory, is it? You may see the picture of a tree, but that presence of sound, presence, doesn't matter what's present. That's not a memory. Never will be, never can be. It has nothing to do with time. It's just what's there. Here. we will end here for today.